Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another legal breaking reporting and video analysis update. We have 5 legal breaking reportings for the morning of December 11th, Thursday, 2025. Let's get into it. The first reporting is the morning briefing by Washington Post. Let's get into it. Before we begin, please like, comment, share, subscribe, as well as enjoy. Ladies and gentlemen,
President Donald Trump said the U.S. seized an oil tanker off Venezuela's coast. That's where we're starting the 7 from the Washington Post. I'm Hannah Jewell. It's Thursday, December 11th. Let's get you caught up with today's 7 stories. The crude oil tanker seized off the coast of Venezuela yesterday is used to transport oil from Venezuela and Iran. That's according to U.S. officials. Here's how Trump described the seizure of the ship, talking to reporters yesterday.
As you probably know, we've just seized a tanker on the coast of Venezuela, large tanker, very large. Largest one ever seized, actually.
Trump did not provide further details about the seizure, the tanker, or where it was headed. But when he was asked what would happen with its oil, Trump said, "We keep it, I guess." Attorney General Pam Bondi said that the tanker had been sanctioned by the U.S., quote, due to its involvement in an illicit oil shipping network supporting foreign terrorist organizations. But the legal authority under which the vessel and its contents were seized was not specified by the administration. Venezuela's foreign minister called it blatant theft and an act of international piracy. The seizure adds a new tactic to the Trump administration's months-long military campaign in waters near Venezuela. The buildup appears to be a pressure campaign to unseat Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. Number 2 is a Post exclusive. The Trump administration signed a contract to buy a fleet of planes for deportations. ICE has long relied on charter planes to carry out deportation flights. But under a plan revealed by the Post yesterday, that could change. The Department of Homeland Security recently signed a contract worth nearly $140 million to purchase 6 Boeing 737 planes. The move will allow ICE, which is part of DHS, to operate its own fleet. Earlier this year, Congress signed off on $170 billion for President Trump's border and immigration agenda as part of the GOP's sprawling tax bill. Officials said the money for the planes is coming from that funding. Number 3. 12 billionaires have held roles in the Trump administration this year. This morning, the Post published a list of the billionaires who have been picked by Trump to help run the country. Other than the president himself, they include a few familiar and less than familiar names. For example, the world's richest man, Elon Musk, led the U.S. Doge service until late May. Another one is Tillman Fertitta. He is the ambassador to Italy and San Marino. He's also the billionaire owner of the NBA team, the Houston Rockets. Education Secretary Linda McMahon has a net worth of $3 billion. She made her money in the professional wrestling business. While previous administrations have included the ultra-rich, the wealth held by this group is larger than even the first Trump administration. In total, they're worth more than $390 billion as of March. But a backlash is brewing. The debate over how much influence billionaires should have on U.S. politics has sparked protests around the country. You can find the full list of billionaires in our newsletter today. Just follow the link in our show notes. Number 4. The Federal Reserve cut interest rates again. When deciding whether or not to cut interest rates this month, the Fed didn't have as much data as usual due to the government shutdown. And the economy, with its stubborn inflation and softening job market, is sending mixed signals. But yesterday, the central bank went ahead and cut interest rates by 0.25 percentage point to the lowest level in about 3 years. The cut could make your credit card bill slightly cheaper, but it's less likely to affect most people's longer-term loans, like mortgages and car loans. It's not clear whether we'll see more interest rate cuts in the near future, as central bankers are divided on what's best for the economy right now. But investors were happy with yesterday's decision. Major financial indexes ended higher on Wednesday afternoon. Number 5. A new lawsuit claims ChatGPT spurred a 56-year-old man to kill his mother. Stein Erik Solberg was a former technology executive with a history of mental health struggles. When he told an AI chatbot that the printer in his mother's home office might be spying on him, the chatbot agreed. That's according to a video of the conversation he posted on YouTube in July. In August, Solberg and his mother, 83-year-old Suzanne Adams, were both discovered dead in her home. Now, a lawsuit from Adams' estate alleges that she died after being beaten and strangled by her son, who later killed himself. The lawsuit, which was filed today, also claims that ChatGPT maker OpenAI bears responsibility for her death. The estate's lawyer claims this is the first case alleging that ChatGPT led to a murder. OpenAI said it is working to improve ChatGPT's ability to recognize signs of mental or emotional distress. A disclosure, the Post has a content partnership with OpenAI. The Calibri font has been banished from U.S. diplomacy. That's number 6. Secretary of State Marco Rubio ordered staff on Tuesday to stop using the Calibri font and return to Times New Roman. The State Department had switched to Calibri, a sans serif font, during the Biden administration. The change had been intended to help employees who are visually impaired or have low vision issues. Sans serif fonts don't have decorative lines or strokes at the end of characters. Accessibility and vision impairment advocacy groups widely recommend them. But Rubio called the Biden-era change a wasteful diversity move, and said Times New Roman was more formal and professional. And at number 7, a new discovery is rewriting the timeline of when humans first made fire. For years, scientists have been examining a reddish patch of sediment excavated in an old clay pit in the east of England. A new study reveals what it was: a 400,000-year-old open-air hearth for making fires. This is the oldest evidence of human-made fire, and it pushes back the timeline on firemaking by about 350,000 years. Mastering fire is thought to be a pivotal part of human evolution. The ability to reliably set fires would have allowed humans to cook food. That, in turn, could have supported bigger brains that consumed more energy and prompted new social behaviors as humans gathered around campfires. It turns out it's not easy to find ancient evidence of man-made fire, but at the link in our newsletter, you can watch the archaeologists at work and see how they did it. Alright, you're all caught up. If you would like a shot at winning a $100 gift card, listen up. We have a new survey that we're running for a limited time, and we would love to hear from you. It takes about 10 minutes. You can find it at washingtonpost.com/podcast survey. That's washingtonpost.com/podcast survey. When you're done, you can enter to win that delicious gift card. I'm Hannah Jewell. I'll meet you back here tomorrow.
With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, let's get into our next legal breaking reporting by the New York Times. A judge has ordered Kilmar Armando Abrego Garcia, the 30-year-old, wrongfully, erroneously, illegally deported to El Salvador. Let's get into it.
Judge orders Abrego Garcia's release from ICE detention. This article is by Alan Fewer and read by an automated voice. A federal judge on Thursday ordered the release of Kilmar Armando Abrego Garcia from immigration custody, saying that the Trump administration had detained him for nearly 4 months without lawful authority, despite repeated vows to re-expel him from the country. The ruling by the judge, Paula Xinis, was a stinging defeat for the administration, which had often promised that Mr. Abrego Garcia would never walk free on U.S. soil. It was also the latest twist in a long and Byzantine saga that over the past year transformed him from an unknown migrant living in Maryland who was wrongfully deported to El Salvador in March into one of the best-known symbols of President Trump's aggressive deportation agenda. Judge Xinis's ruling, issued in federal district court in Maryland, meant that Mr. Abrego Garcia would be both free from custody and, at least for now, out from under the immediate shadow of being deported from the country yet again. But while the ruling was a stern rebuke of how Trump officials have handled his multiple intersecting cases, it is unlikely to be the final word. The Justice Department could appeal the decision, and administration officials could also seek to open a new immigration proceeding against him. Moreover, Mr. Abrego Garcia is still facing separate criminal charges of smuggling undocumented immigrants in a different court altogether in Nashville. Still, Andrew Rossman, one of his lawyers, hailed Judge Xinis's ruling. Today's decision granting Mr. Abrego Garcia's release is a victory, not just for one Maryland man, but for everyone, Mr. Rossman said. We're gratified by the court's ruling upholding due process and the rule of law. In her 31-page decision, Judge Xinis said she had little choice but to release Mr. Abrego Garcia, pointing to a remarkable but often overlooked fact about the case. The Trump administration had never obtained a valid final order for his removal from the United States. The lack of a removal order, Judge Xinis said, meant that the government had been holding Mr. Abrego Garcia without legal authority. It was all the more extraordinary given how his ordeal had started in the first place. In March, immigration officials grabbed Mr. Abrego Garcia off the streets of suburban Maryland and put him on a plane with scores of other immigrants to El Salvador, even though the only judicial order in his name was one that expressly forbade him from being sent there in the first place. Judge Xinis spent much of her ruling running through what she described as the case's tortured history. That included a nearly 4-month period in which the Trump administration flouted 3 court orders, including one from the Supreme Court, to facilitate Mr. Abrego Garcia's release from El Salvador, where he claims to have been tortured while locked up in a notorious prison built for terrorists. During this time, Mr. Trump personally accused Mr. Abrego Garcia of being a member of the violent street gang MS-13, using as evidence a photoshopped image of tattoos on his knuckles. Senior members of his administration joined in the attacks, repeatedly hurling insults at Mr. Abrego Garcia that included gangbanger, monster, illegal predator, and illegal alien terrorist. Then in June, just as Judge Xinis was losing patience with the White House and threatened to hold officials in contempt, Attorney General Pam Bondi suddenly announced that she was doing what her subordinates had already said was impossible, bringing Mr. Abrego Garcia back from El Salvador. He was returned, however, not merely to comply with Judge Xinis's instructions, but as Ms. Bondi said, so that federal prosecutors in Nashville could charge him with having allegedly taken part in a years-long conspiracy to smuggle undocumented immigrants across American state lines. For the better part of the next 3 months, the administration toggled, somewhat confusingly, between promising to prosecute Mr. Abrego Garcia to the full extent of the law and vowing to re-deport him to a country other than El Salvador. As officials tacked back and forth, the federal judge overseeing Mr. Abrego Garcia's criminal case released him from custody on the smuggling charges, casting serious doubts on what he was the government's poor attempts to tie Abrego to MS-13. 3 days after he was freed, Mr. Abrego Garcia was detained again, this time by immigration officials who abruptly asserted they would seek to deport him to Uganda, a country to which he had no ties. It was then that his lawyers filed a new court action in front of Judge Xinis, seeking to block his removal to a country not his own. That filing set off a multi-week scramble as officials floated plans to expel Mr. Abrego Garcia to other African countries, including Eswatini and Ghana. But each of the proposals failed because the officials were unable to secure agreements from their counterparts overseas. In late October, as Judge Xinis's patience was wearing thin again, the administration made yet another proposal. It would send Mr. Abrego Garcia to Liberia, which had in fact agreed to take him and was, as government lawyers pointed out in court papers, a thriving democracy and one of the United States' closest partners on the African continent. Mr. Abrego Garcia's lawyers rejected that idea as well and said they were baffled why the White House stubbornly refused to send their client to Costa Rica, the one place to which he had agreed to go and which had also agreed to accept him. Much of the administration's back and forth came into focus only because Judge Xinis repeatedly hauled Justice Department lawyers and immigration officials into her courtroom in Maryland for hearings to determine what they planned to do with Mr. Abrego Garcia. In her ruling, she chided the administration for its conduct during those hearings, saying that government lawyers had at various times stonewalled her, disobeyed her direct instructions, and even affirmatively misled her. That occurred, she pointed out, when the lawyers told her that the option of sending Mr. Abrego Garcia to Costa Rica was no longer viable, leaving Liberia as the only remaining choice. But that, the judge insisted, turned out not to be true. Within 24 hours of the lawyers taking Costa Rica off the table, one of the country's top officials told multiple news sources, Judge Xinis wrote, that its offer to grant Abrego Garcia residence and refugee status is, and always has been, firm, unwavering, and unconditional. All of this suggested to the judge that the administration was not, and perhaps had never been, serious about redeporting Mr. Abrego Garcia. And that, she said, was partly why she had released him. Respondents' persistent refusal to acknowledge Costa Rica as a viable removal option, their threats to send Abrego Garcia to African countries that never agreed to take him, and their misrepresentation to the court that Liberia is now the only country available to Abrego Garcia, all reflect that whatever purpose was behind his detention, she wrote, it was not for the basic purpose of timely third country removal.
That's 2 pots today.
Yeah, well, that's okay.
With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, let's get into our next reporting.
Democrat gains in race against Ramaswamy for Ohio governor. Poll by Caroline Vackel. Democrat Amy Acton is polling neck and neck with Republican Vivek Ramaswamy in the Ohio governor's race, according to a new survey. An Emerson College polling survey released on Thursday found Acton, a former Ohio Department of Health director, receiving 46%, while Ramaswamy, who ran for the GOP presidential nomination last cycle, at 45%. A separate 9% said they were undecided. The polling falls within the survey's 3.3 margin of error, essentially tying the two candidates. Compared to a similar poll conducted in August, Acton has seen a 7-point increase, while Ramaswamy has lost some ground with a 4-point decline. The August Emerson College poll found women voters split between Ramaswamy and Acton, 44% to 42%, and then breaking for Ramaswamy 54% to 36%, said Spencer Kimball, executive director of Emerson College Polling, in a press release. 4 months later, men still support Ramaswamy by about 20 points, 55% to 35%, but women have shifted toward Acton, breaking for her 56% to 37%. The polling also found Senator John Husted, Republican from Ohio, and former Senator Sherrod Brown, Democrat from Ohio, neck and neck as well. Husted received 49%, while Brown received 46%, which is within the poll's margin of error. A separate 5% said they were undecided. The December poll shows Brown has seen his numbers moderately tick up since a similar poll was conducted in August. Brown gained 2 points since August, while Husted only lost a point. The poll found that economy ranked as the most important issue among voters 44%, followed next by threats to democracy at 13%, health care at 11%, housing affordability at 9%, and immigration at 8%, among other issues. Ohio voters who did not participate in the 2024 election, most of whom are under 30, are more likely to identify as Republicans rather than Democrats, Kimball said in the press release. In addition, 31% of voters under 30 align with independents or Democrats, while 38% identify with Republicans, though this group still breaks for Democrats by about 12 points. Democrats hold a larger advantage among voters in their 30s than among under 30, further indicating shifting political dynamics within the Ohio electorate. The Emerson College polling survey was conducted between December 6th and December 8th, with 850 Ohio active registered voters surveyed. The margin of error is plus or minus 3.3 percentage points.
With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, let's get into our next legal breaking reporting video analysis update, also by The Hill. Before we begin, please like, comment, as well as share, subscribe for more legal breaking news that you need to know about.
GOP lawmakers unhappy with Trump's affordability message. You cannot call it a hoax, by Alexander Bolton. Senate Republicans, unsettled by recent Democratic victories in the off-year elections, want President Trump to do more to respond to the issue of affordability, a buzzword Trump recently dismissed as a Democratic con job, despite polls showing voters view higher costs as a major issue. Republican lawmakers say they are glad Trump traveled to Pennsylvania on Tuesday to tout his economic record, but they warn that the White House needs to do more to show voters it is working hard to ease the financial burdens felt by millions of Americans struggling to cope with rising costs. You cannot call it a hoax, and suggest that people are going to believe it. Senator Lisa Murkowski, Republican from Alaska, said of Trump's attempts to dispute evidence that affordability has become a major concern for millions of Americans. What you say matters. Trump has seemed out of touch at times with voters' concerns over the economy, a dynamic that plagued his predecessor, former President Biden. Trump told Politico in a recent interview that he would grade the economy as A+++++. Speaking in Pennsylvania on Tuesday, the president argued that prices are coming down very substantially, and blasted Democratic critics who are hitting him over affordability for pushing a hoax. Murkowski suggested those around Trump may be out of touch. By the time somebody is at the level that they are serving as president of the United States, it is not like they are going out and doing their own shopping, she said. Trump is not sitting down on a Thursday night and paying his own bills and seeing what is going on with healthcare and how much his credit card shows for gas receipts. It is important that his team be really honest with him about what people are talking about around the dinner table, she said. A senior Republican senator who requested anonymity to discuss Trump's handling of the affordability issue said the president needs to understand that his party faces a major political problem. I think Republicans need to have a message about caring for people who are struggling because of the high cost of things. I see it at home. The cost of things is a problem, the senator said. Republican lawmakers are not happy Trump has paid so much attention to building a massive ballroom at the White House when millions of Americans are struggling financially. Is it a political problem? Sure, it is a political problem because it is a problem for people, the senator said. The cost of living just makes life very difficult on people. The Trump administration this week unveiled a $12 billion aid package for farmers. Farm advocates applauded the move, but noted it would not cover the losses suffered by commodity crop growers that are projected to range from $35 billion to $44 billion, according to Reuters. Trump has seemed less attuned to financial hardships at other moments. Speaking at a rally in Mount Pocono, Trump declared Tuesday that prices are coming down tremendously and that inflation has stopped. Bureau of Labor Statistics measured annual inflation at 3% at the end of September, above the Federal Reserve's target of 2%. Senator Tilly, Republican from North Carolina, said Trump needs to do more to address affordability and focus on pockets of Americans who are struggling. The president rightfully points to the policies of Biden as the hole that we are digging ourselves out of, but while we are still in a hole, we are in a hole, he said. I am pretty sure if I go back to that trailer park I grew up in, if I did a town hall, they are not doing fine, he said, citing recent jobs reports as a red flag. Tilly said Trump needs to make faster progress finalizing trade deals with foreign partners. We got to get certainty. The tariffs by themselves are the definition of uncertainty. You do not know when they may be jacked up, when they may be removed. Businesses need some certainty. We need them backed into trade agreements so we calm the waters, he said. Senator Joni Ernst, Republican from Iowa, argued Trump is working very hard to bring down costs, but called for the administration to embrace the year-round sale of gasoline, with 15% blended ethanol to further reduce prices at the pump. It all comes down to energy, transportation costs, you name it, that catches the consumer. Let us focus on energy, she said. Some Republican lawmakers are frustrated Trump has not shown more leadership on the issue of rising health insurance premiums, leaving them divided over how to respond to the expiration of enhanced subsidies under the Affordable Care Act. Senator John Cornyn, Republican from Texas, who is up for re-election next year, said presidential guidance would be very helpful. GOP senators discussed rising health care costs at a Republican steering committee lunch Wednesday, viewing a slide presentation that noted 88% of Americans surveyed think the nation is facing a health care crisis, according to a senator who attended the meeting. Other Republicans on Capitol Hill are disappointed Trump has not made faster progress on reaching trade deals and feel anxious about his threats to implement new tariffs on imports, fearing doing so would hurt consumers and businesses at home. Senator Susan Collins, Republican from Maine, one of the Senate's most vulnerable incumbents, warned Wednesday that Trump's threat to slap a new tariff on Canadian fertilizer would hurt farmers in Maine. Having a new tariff on Canadian fertilizer would be very harmful to farmers in Maine who get much of their fertilizer from Canada, she said. Collins said she thinks Trump cares about high costs, but acknowledged Republicans should be doing more to address the problem, which is souring many Americans' view of the economy. We all need to work together to do more, but I think he cares about the issue, she said. Recent polls show a majority of Americans disapprove of Trump's handling of the economy, and a majority blame the Trump administration for high living costs. Trump's approval rating on his handling of the economy stands at 40.7%, and his disapproval rating on the economy is 55.8%, according to an average of recent polls compiled by Real Clear Politics. A Politico poll of 2,098 adults published Wednesday found that 55% of Americans blame the Trump administration for high grocery prices, and that nearly half of them said groceries, utility bills, healthcare, and transportation are difficult to afford. Those weak polling numbers come as Democrats have reeled off a string of election victories, most recently in Florida, where Eileen Higgins on Tuesday became the first Democrat to win election as mayor of Miami in 28 years. Democrats scored another impressive win in Georgia this week, when Democrat Eric Gisler won a state house seat in a district Trump carried by 12 percentage points in 2024. Democrats also racked up impressive victories last month, when they handily won the New Jersey and Virginia gubernatorial races and flipped about 20 legislative seats around the country.
With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, let's get into our final reporting for the morning of Thursday, December 11, 2025, also by The Hill.
Democrats divided over effort to force vote on banning lawmaker stock trading, by Sudiksha Kochi. Democrats are at odds over a Republican-led discharge petition to ban stock trading by members of Congress, with some insisting that any prohibition should also apply to the executive branch. It marks the latest complication on an issue that has vexed Congress for years and fueled multiple unsuccessful attempts at reform. Representative Ana Paulina Luna, Republican from Florida, introduced a discharge petition earlier this month, hoping to jolt the long-stalled debate and force a vote on a bipartisan bill to bar lawmakers, their spouses, dependent children, and trustees from owning, buying, or selling individual stocks. Lawmakers in both parties broadly agree on the need for reform regarding stock trading, but differ on how to approach it. Because a discharge petition is seen as a shot at House leadership, a successful effort likely would require widespread Democratic buy-in. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, Democrat from New York, blasted the effort at a Tuesday press conference, even as several members of his conference broke ranks to back it. If she is interested in dealing with corruption, do something about the active ongoing crime scene coming out of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, the most corrupt administration in American history, and it is not even close. And we do not hear a peep from her or any of her colleagues about even extending the stock ban to the executive branch, to Donald Trump, to J.D. Vance, or perhaps even to the Supreme Court, Jeffries said. He added that the only open question about whether we are going to move forward and deal with this aspect of cleaning up corruption in this town, a congressional stock ban, is whether Republicans have the will to partner with us in a bipartisan way. The bipartisan bill Luna is aiming to bring to the floor, introduced by Representatives Chip Roy, Republican from Texas, and Seth Magaziner, Democrat from Rhode Island in September, has been backed by progressive Democratic Representatives Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Democrat from New York, and Pramila Jayapal, Democrat from Washington. As of 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Wednesday, 13 Republicans and 24 Democrats have signed onto the petition, which requires 218 signatures to be successful. Some Democrats who have not signed onto the petition agreed with Jeffries. House Administration Committee Ranking Member Joseph Morrill, Democrat from New York, told The Hill he will not sign Luna's discharge petition, arguing the ban needs to include the president, the vice president, the cabinet, and members of the court. The president clearly has much more of an ability to affect the markets, and this president has shown he is perfectly willing to take advantage of that inherent conflict. So if Republicans are going to make the decision that they will only do it to members of Congress and not the biggest offender, I think it speaks volumes about what they value, Morrill said. The House Administration Committee, led by Chair Brian Stale, Republican from Wisconsin, held a hearing last month to address the issue of stock trading, though no final proposal emerged from the discussion. Representative Jim McGovern, Democrat from Massachusetts, echoed similar sentiments, saying the corruption coming from the White House is so intense it would make Richard Nixon blush. He noted any ban extending to the executive branch would include future Democratic presidents as well. I appreciate Representative Luna moving in this direction. I just think it is deficient because it does not include the White House, he said. President Trump holds substantial ownership stakes worth billions of dollars across a range of publicly traded companies, including Trump Media and Technology Group Corporation, Blue Owl Capital Corporation, and Broadcom Incorporated, according to U.S. News and World Report. If we do not pass an anti-corruption bill that addresses the corruption of Trump, then I think we have not fulfilled the limits of what we need to address, said Representative Julie Johnson, Democrat from Texas, who added Tuesday that she has not looked at the petition yet. When asked about the concerns, Luna told The Hill the bipartisan bill starts the conversation. She said to do nothing is part of the problem. She also responded to Jeffries' accusation that she had parachuted into the middle of the issue, telling reporters Wednesday, accusing me of parachuting after they have been promising to reform it and have done nothing. I am just being proactive. Now I am happy to negotiate with him. Magaziner told The Hill there has been ongoing conversations on a possible path forward. He said that Roy has been negotiating with Speaker Mike Johnson, Republican from Louisiana, and Stale to possibly pass the bill through regular order, while Magaziner has been trying to work through Democratic concerns about an extension on the executive branch. As far as the discharge petition goes, I am grateful for Luna's support of our bill. She moved the discharge a little sooner than we wanted, Magaziner said. Any stock trading ban that applies to the executive branch is unlikely to pass the Republican-controlled House or the Senate. Some Democrats acknowledge those legislative hurdles and say they should not stand in the way of progress on the issue, even if the bill is not perfect. The corruption we're seeing at the White House and with this administration is unprecedented, and it should be part of any story, but of course, like you know, it does not mean that this Congress should not take the lead on banning members from trading individual stock, said Representative Greg Lonsman, Democrat from Ohio, who signed the petition. Representative John Larson, Democrat from Connecticut, said he thinks a ban should extend to the executive branch, but is still willing to sign the petition. We do not have any control over the executive branch. We do to the extent that we can pass legislation, but certainly and practically and straightforwardly, it ought to apply to us first, Larson said. I believe it should apply to them as well. And will they be willing to write legislation on that? Probably not, but if we based everything on what President Trump is going to do, we would never have any legislation. He added that what I think the public despises most is when they see excuses. Now, sometimes there is validity to holding out and one should. But I think it sends the wrong message when you say, well, I would have signed it, but Trump's not going to. Representative Jamie Raskin, Democrat from Maryland, said there needs to be a sweeping ethics reform that affects the legislative, executive, and the judicial branch, but he does not think we should hold this process up. This is a crisis moment, but we should set the example. We are the lawmaking branch of government, and his job is to take care of the laws faithfully executed. He does not do that. He distorts the law. He avoids the law, but we should be obeying the law, and we should be leading by example in fighting corruption, Raskin said.
With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for this legal breaking reporting video analysis update. If you did enjoy this legal breaking reporting video analysis update, please like, comment, share, subscribe, and enjoy for more legal breaking news that you need to know about. More to come soon.